Coming up on this edition of Reel to Reel, we'll take you inside the cloister of the Trappistine Sisters in Wrentham, Massachusetts. Known for their candy making, these sisters lead a life of prayer and hard work, with a call to love God in silence and solitude. Coming your way next on Reel to Reel. Hello and welcome to Reel to Reel. Today we bring you the second of a two-part documentary on the lives of the Trappistine Sisters at Mount St. Mary's Abbey in Wrentham, Massachusetts. Known for their candy production, the sisters live a cloistered life full of prayer and hard work. The documentary was produced by Catholic TV in Boston and offers a rare glimpse into the daily life of the monastic community.
I am a Jewish convert. We were a conservative Jewish family. I mean, we had a kosher home. I went to Hebrew school. But by the time I was a sophomore in college, it was all put aside. I mean, I wanted nothing to do with it. I was experiencing intense spiritual hunger. And I used to walk around, and these wordless melodies would come up from my depths. Like lamentations. I mean, I was crying to God, and I didn't know him. And I was starving. My soul was starving. I was starving for the Eucharist. Of course, I didn't know it back then, but I mean, it was God's mercy that really, did it. I didn't know what was happening. It was only in hindsight that I could see. But that was where he pulled me. It was an inner hunger.
My vocation really begins at the beginning of my life, I have to say. I don't remember a time when I didn't have a sense of God, have some desire for God. And while I was in college, it was the beginning of my sophomore year that I first explicitly had a sense of call to the religious life. It happened after a period of searching, questioning, finding my identity as an adult, living separately from my parents, having the opportunity for the first time to practice my faith of my own volition, as it were, and coming to realize that my desire for God was a very significant part of my life. And so literally one day, taking a walk, it popped into my head, why not be a nun? And what that meant for me at that time, really, when I looked into it, was to be consecrated to God, to belong to God. That was what I desired.
When I was a very young nun, I entered at 19. Deep within me, I felt he may have been calling me to a contemplative life, but I loved my order and I loved teaching. So I sort of put it on the back burner. And then I went to teach in northwestern Australia with the Aboriginals people, and it was just heavenly. They were so simple, and I remember it so clearly. I remember saying to God as I walked across the grass in the heat, very, very hot, I said to God, I'm just so happy. It was just a beautiful school, beautiful situation. And I heard deep within my heart, but you haven't given me everything yet. So I knew that was the time that I had to be honest with myself and with someone else and speak about it to someone else to get guidance. And that's when the journey towards the contemplative life started.
I was discerning what would life look like if God did rule in me. And the answer that gradually came to me was amazing. I would know that God is, that God lives, because he would stand with all the power of his might and goodness in my soul, and I would experience him as the Holy One. Love would fulfill its divine destiny between God and me alone, and yet include all mankind. this was for me a very fundamental thought that would lead me towards a search of God and deeper spiritual growth, and brought me finally in touch with a monastic life.
But I loved the silence and the peace, and it was so beautiful. Then I had an experience of God, and that was really where I got my vocation. I mean, I hadn't visited any religious orders or anything, but the experience was that God was love, God existed, and God was real. If I had wings, I would have flown away. I mean, I felt so light and like as if it was a new day, and everything seemed to change.
Right after college, I needed something else. I was very active in my church, my parish, but it wasn't enough. I wanted to give more of my life, not necessarily religious life either. I just wanted more of me to him. But I came and I thought, this is nice, but you wouldn't be really calling me to this. This is not my background. This is not it. Because I was from the charismatic renewal background, jump, dance, put your hands up in the air, that kind of thing. But 3 years into the search and visiting different communities, I couldn't get the place out of my mind. The image of our altar, the sisters, everything just came, and it was steady. But when that image of that altar came, it was something from in out. It was more than I could resist. So I had to say yes and take a step forward.
I had a very distinct sense that this was the place that Jesus was calling me to. It happened, I wouldn't say the moment I walked across the threshold. The monastic spirituality, certain aspects touched me in particular, but one most of all, really, and that was, as our constitutions put it, only if the sisters prefer nothing whatever to Christ will they be happy to persevere in a life that is ordinary, obscure, and laborious. And I knew when I heard that I wanted nothing more than Christ, and that this was a place where I could pursue that with others who were similarly oriented.
Cistercian spirituality demands the sisters take time to pray and also take time to work.
Our life is geared to finding God in every aspect of our life, but God just reveals himself in a setting like this.
Balance is the key to making it all work together.
Our younger sisters find it very valuable to do strenuous work and to interact with living things.
You know, I don't see work and prayer as two very different things. For me, it's like a many-faceted diamond, and so the sun shines on maybe working in the infirmary, maybe working in the business office, maybe private prayer, maybe serving someone. Basically, when I serve others, I feel closer to God in prayer. So when serving, when called to even do the dishes quietly, that to me is being with Jesus, and that to me is what prayer is about. It's like a one beautiful diamond that the sun shines all over the place.
I do find more and more that I don't feel work is as separate from prayer as I did when I first came here. But I think work is a very important grounding influence for me. I like that we do manual labor. I like that we do things with our hands. You do something you can feel and touch and see.
Candy work is primary, the work that we do. But so mornings, usually I do candy work. And then in the afternoon, it varies. I do grounds with Sister Jane. I work with the sheep once or twice a week. And I have what's called a compost charge, which I take care of all the buckets with all the leftover foods in the compost.
Our work is often very quiet and simple, manual, very repetitive types of work. It very much just frees your mind to be able to think about God, just to really be present. If I am coding munch, am I really present, or am I thinking about what I'm going to do when candy work is over, or this afternoon, or tonight, or what I need to do later? Do you know, am I really in this moment? And one of the beautiful things about the silence at work is really being able to remember, I am here to be with God, and is that what I'm doing in this moment? Or am I thinking about everything else besides what I am doing? Work and prayer aren't separated. Just because I'm working doesn't mean I'm not still attentive to God or why I'm in the monastery or attentive to my vocation.
I'm a workaholic. I love to work. So again, the transition between working out in the world and working here is very different. I liked 9-10 hour shifts because I could get a lot done. Here it's 2 to 2.5 hour shifts. And if you're not done, the bell rang, you gotta go. So work becomes a way to prayer. So sometimes I need it because of the physical activity, and that helps the mind. But sometimes it just creates an environment that I can just have a conversation with God. My favorite job is the compost charge. There's nothing to it that will distract me from trying to pray and to have that conversation with God. And even if a little bit of pride starts to sneak in, all I have to do is take a big sniff and I know exactly where I am and I can go back to where I need to be. I've been falling in love with the Psalms. And so for me, work, especially because it's not a mind work, it helps me to memorize the Psalms and to just recite it.
The reality is that the call to love God in the cloister of the monastery means the Trappistines will have limited contact with anyone beyond the boundaries of the abbey. That is one of the most difficult parts of answering the call.
It was quite difficult and painful. Our family is quite tight-knit. So to have this profound experience of God calling me to something that I really couldn't even put into words, and then to try to explain that to my family when on some level all they could see was I'm leaving. You know, I'm leaving and there's going to be this great separation and I can't talk to you whenever I want to. I can't visit you whenever I want to. It was quite painful. It was quite painful.
I didn't know I'd be so lonely when I came. Loneliness has led me closer to Jesus because he's helping me in those moments. So when anyone asks me, why did you do it? There's only one reason in my life, and the reason is love. It's why I entered at the beginning when I was young. It's why I followed this vocation, which I didn't realize would be quite as hard leaving my country as it was. And I remember my mother was very upset because she said, you're leaving your country, your family, the order you love, for something you know nothing about. And I said, yes, because I know the reason is love, and the love of Jesus, obviously. And that's what's held me all the way along, and the ups and downs, the valleys and the mountains and the rivers that we've had to cross. But he's the core love, so that wherever I've been on the journey of life, he's been waiting there. Even if I wander a little bit, he'll be there waiting to call me back. And so that's the reason, and that's why I'm here.
Living a regimented life of silence and solitude is not easy. Confronting and embracing the silence is a significant challenge.
That was something that attracted me before I came. It was also something that terrified me in some way. When I was an observer, I came for 6 weeks to live with the sisters before entering, to have an experience of the life more intimately. And during that time, I was struck with a mortal terror of solitude and silence, and of the kind of integrity that demands. There is a real responsibility. I mean, there's a formation that comes. But at that time, it was a moment of fear and trembling, and just this deep down conviction that this is the way, walk in it.
We're formed not to be afraid to be silent together. It's a solitude of the heart, not of the body, and you carry it around with you all the time.
For me, I love it. I love it when I'm alone. Something happens inside your heart that you become almost true to yourself, true to myself.
I love being hidden. I want to be hidden in God's heart. That's where I live. That's where I want to be.
The sisters all confess that another reality of their life is confronting their own weaknesses and the ever-present duty to grow in virtue.
The toughest part is to see yourself so clearly, to see everything in yourself that is not yet converted, and that might not be for a long time, if ever, this side of the grave. To see that and to trust still that you are loved, not just by God, but by your sisters who see it too. It's there for everyone to see, to trust also in their mercy and their compassion.
Going into those unknowns, when God's will reveals itself as something different, is like jumping off a cliff, you know. And obedience is a really central thing, where we really believe in faith that your life is not your own.
The most difficult part is being called beyond my comfort zone in terms of interpersonal relationships, which reveal that which in me is in the way, which prevents me from loving my sisters as I should.
One of the most difficult things is just accepting yourself as you are before God and growing, always growing. Growing can be difficult, and seeing things in yourself that you'd rather not.
This is a life in which God is determined to make us like Jesus.
We want to live in peace together, to give our life credibility, and to really live it before God, that God can make it a blessing for the world.
And he puts us in a community and with sisters who we would never choose. And the interactions and the happenings and the trials are all meant to fashion Christ in us.
My mom said a long time ago, people are saying you've escaped, to a peaceful life. And I said, well, it's not really an escape, because we have this vow of stability. And so if you're not getting along with someone, you can't get out of the situation. You have to really work through it. And she said, you mean the sisters don't get along with each other? People don't realize that it's real life. And that you bring and everyone else brings their own unfinished selves, and that we're willing to commit to each other to grow and to allow other people to grow, but that's very painful. So it's a struggle, the journey. But at the heart of it is this tremendous groundedness in Christ.
The best part in this life is that we are called to prayer.
What's the best part? Being hidden with God, with all these wonderful other people who are all on the same journey, who have God as the main focus of their life.
Being invited to know Jesus Christ and to follow him and to become like him.
The best part, I think, would be the search for God. But the search for God is very mysterious because it never turns out the way you plan. Because God is always full of surprises.
The best part is knowing that I belong to the one for whom I looked for so long. I think what is most beautiful to me is the morning, the time between when we wake up at 3 and Lauds, which begins at 6:30. It's called the Great Silence, and it is a very, very great thing. It is a very great silence, and it's very real. It penetrates your heart the longer you're here. And I stay in church for about an hour and a half every morning, just in the darkness, just silently praying. I couldn't live without that. I'm not sure if I can tell you why in words, because sometimes it's very, it's very beautiful, and sometimes it just feels like I'm just there and nothing terribly exciting is happening. But regardless of how I feel about it, on a deeper level, it's feeding me, and I could never walk away from that.
In the mysterious, hidden life of the Trappistines, the reason they continue to cherish their life in the monastery is the reality of the divine love they know and experience so deeply. In the quiet, when as a community, they pray and sing hymns of joy and thanksgiving. When they serve the sisters they live with. Break bread with. And work with. From the mundane routine of the compost pile to the garden, pruning blueberries to stimulate the new, still sleeping springtime growth. To the barn, shepherding the sheep from which their wool will be used to make blankets. Theirs is a life of mission and purpose.
The purpose of our being here is to pray for the needs of the world. And there is such great suffering and such great need and pain in the world. And our response is just to embrace all of that. And in our own struggles, our own daily life, in a very mysterious way, we are separated and we are cloistered, and yet I feel that I serve just as importantly or just as powerfully as I did when I worked with the poor directly. I'm here to intercede. I'm here to pray for these people in need, for everyone. I know that this is the mission and the ministry that God has given me.
There is a flight to God, to the God who loved the world so much that he gave his only son. And I think the more we seek that God and the more we come to know that God, the more we desire to embrace the world that he loved so much.
When Jesus says that the one who gives up everything will get it back 100-fold, he isn't just using a figure of speech. It's a very real thing, and the longer I'm here and the more I let go of, the more I realize that you really do get it back in some way that's more beautiful than you could ever imagine. But you have to let go first.
For a long time, I was waiting for this certainty. I think I had this time of great uncertainty. Was God still asking this of me, or did he change his mind? But now it's quite clear. It's quite clear to me and to the community that God has called me here.
I had looked for this person for so long that when I finally found him and found that there was a place where I could give him everything, it was almost a foregone conclusion. I had been a seeker my whole life, that once I had found what I was seeking, it was an all or nothing thing. It was, this is you and I love you and I want to give you my life.
Star of sea and ocean, gateway to man's heaven, Mother of our Maker, hear our prayer, O Maiden.
The smiles on each of these sisters' faces speaks volumes. And if you would like more information about the Trappistine Sisters, we have a link to their website at iobserve.org. And for this week, that's Reel to Reel. To keep up with all of the latest news on the Catholic Church, both here in the Diocese of Springfield and around the world, check out our news and information website, iobserve.org. There you can also watch past episodes of Reel to Reel. That's iobserve.org. And remember, you can also friend us on Facebook. We are at Catholic Communications. Next week, we'll be back with an all-new episode, so be sure to tune in then at the same time for Reel to Reel, your window on the world around you. See you then.
Reel to Reel is a production of the Catholic Communications Corporation, funded in part by the annual Catholic Appeal, and the support of you, our faithful viewers.